don't realize this, but 1 in 5 of their marks in chemistry comes down to maths. And the difference between that with 6 and a grade 9 is often not to do with the chemistry itself, but it is more about knowing how to use maths to answer science questions. In fact, a common comment from examiners is this: candidates lost marks due to poor arithmetic or failure to convert units. Imagine that. That means the chemistry, but the maths is letting you down. And that's why in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 most important math skills you need to master for grade 9 in chemistry and how to build those skills step by step. Hi there, my name is Sylvia Browne, lead tutor here at the Impact Academy. Over the last 5 years, I've helped hundreds of students master both maths and science. Now, just before the recent exams, I was speaking with a parent and she said to me, I thought my daughter was struggling with chemistry, but actually after speaking with you, I realized that the maths behind the chemistry is actually holding her back a lot. And that's why I'm doing this video today, so that essentially to show you how maths is key to getting those top chemistry grades. Now, let's jump straight into that first method on how to get grade 9 in chemistry using maths. And the first method is to ensure that you master significant figures and decimal places. Now, don't stop and go, I know about significant figures and decimal places, I understand it, I'm fine, because it's not about that. It's about how and when you use it that counts. And that's why even higher students miss marks on this similarly basic math skills. So significant figures and decimal places, they show up in many calculations and often as that final marks, the final marks in a multi-step question. And that's why if you're not paying attention and you're a higher student, you can easily lose marks in these questions. So what do you need to do? Here's what you need to do. You need to learn how to round to significant figures. So often we'll be rounding to 2 or 3 significant figures. The second thing you need to do is you need to be aware of the number of significant figures in the question, and then often you will need to give your answer to the same number of significant figures. So if the numbers in the question are given to you was in 2 significant figures, then your answer would also need to be in 2 significant figures. Simple, but many students miss that additional mark on that just because they don't know. Now, if you need more help developing your math skills for science, I created a PDF guide called Top 5 Techniques and Strategies to help GCSE science students improve by 2 grades. And this guide is going to be helpful for you, even if you just want to make sure that you're doing everything right. You feel you don't need help, but you want to make sure that you're doing everything right. In that guide, you'll develop the know-how and the confidence to easily tackle these key maths related questions, so you can effortlessly pick up marks in exams. Plus, there's also a video in there where I walk you through step by step all of the key maths skills for science, so you know exactly what the examiner is looking for and how to answer the questions for the examiners. So go and check that out. It is in the description down below. All right, now let's move on to method 2 for how to get a grade 9 in chemistry using maths. Now, one of the things is that students can often do the hard part on the calculation. They do the calculation, but then they lose marks because they forget to convert the units. What does this mean for you? Well, firstly, you need to know how to convert units in chemistry. So those key conversions like centimeter cube to decimeter cube, grams to kilograms, mole per decimeter cube to grams per decimeter cube, and so on and so forth. Once you know the conversion factor, you can then easily do the appropriate calculation, the appropriate proportion. So for instance, if you know that 1 decimeter cubed equals 1,000 centimeter cubed, then to go from a 2 centimeter cube, you need to times by 1,000. And then you just work out the proportions roughly there. Another option is to use a conversion table. So you can use a conversion table and use a mnemonic to help you to remember those prefix. So your giga, mega, kilo, and so on and so forth. So once you know that and you know the multiplying factor, depending on which way you're going, so depending on whether you're timesing or multiplying, then you can easily just follow that. So a conversion table will be shown on the screen for you shortly. So I'll be showing that to you on the screen in a minute. Now, many students tend to prefer the first method. So that's just knowing the key conversions, but whichever works for you is completely fine. Just learn it and use it to develop your confidence. The other thing that you need to do when it comes to converting units is you need to always check the units before starting your calculation. And also, a very good tip for you is to check the answer section before you write the answer, because a lot of the times in the answer section, they would actually write the units that they want it to be in. So if they want it to be in centimeter cube, they'll write the units that they want it to be in. So once you know that, you can then easily take an answer and make sure you convert it to that unit, right? Again, this is basic maths that we all know, that many students know, but we tend to overlook it under that pressure during the exams. So step 2 is you need to be able to nail converting units. All right, on to step 3 is using ratios and proportions. So this comes particularly in the quantitative chemistry, the chemistry calculations units. So topics like reactant masses, titrations, limiting reactants will require you to understand how to use ratios and proportions. And because quantitative chemistry is an entire unit on its own, you just can't escape the maths around that if you want to get a grade 9, right? You need to be able to know all of the maths that's used within that topic. So again, this is another one where you will get those multi-step questions where you have to work out the ratio as you go along from looking at the chemical equations. And your answer needs to be clearly reasoned based on ratios. So let's just say, for instance, you were working out reactant masses and you had the nitrogen plus hydrogen produces ammonia equation in front of you. Then a clearly reasoned statement in your answer could be something like, well, if you have 3 moles of nitrogen, you will need 9 moles of hydrogen to make ammonia. So you can see there what I've done is I've looked at the balanced equations and I've looked at the proportions in the balanced equations and I've worked that out proportionally. Again, another basic thing that we know, but we overlook that under pressure. These questions are always worth about 3 to 4 marks. So just by knowing your proportions, you are picking up the higher marks. Like I said, again, this is basic maths that students do know, but when it comes to chemistry and we start hearing terms that are unfamiliar, like moles, Avogadro's constant, and so on and so forth, we freeze and we forget that basic maths that we use in our maths lessons. But if you want to get grade 7 and above, then you can't freeze during these questions. You need to be able to move past that. All right, on to step 4, and step 4 is rearranging equations. So rearranging equations, this is where you would have an equation such as moles equals mass divided by molecular mass, and you will need to rearrange it to isolate one of the variable. Now, this is really key because if you struggle to isolate a variable, you will miss marks even if you understand the chemistry. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. There's that classic triangle method, which a lot of students like. So that triangle method should probably be showing up on the screen for you now. Or you can go about it using the good old algebra method. And this is where you do the opposite operation to move things to the other side until that variable is on its own. For example, if you're starting with the formula of concentration, concentration is mass divided by volume, but you want to find the mass, then you simply just move the volume to the other side, and therefore mass will be concentration times volume because you've moved that division over to the other side. Now, if you're planning to go and study science at A level, whether it's biology or chemistry or physics, then I urge you to make sure that you do learn the quadratic method so that you know how to easily manipulate equations. So find the method that works for you, but practice it until it's second nature. The great news about rearranging equations is that you have to do it in physics, you have to do it in maths, you have to do a little bit of it in biology. So it appears in more subjects and therefore gives you more opportunity to practice it and do well with it. And step 5 is graph skills. So with graph skills, you would find that in topics like rate of reaction and things like temperature changes and energy changes. With graph skills, you need to be able to plot data on graph. So plot your results on graph, calculate gradients and draw tangents. You need to be able to spot anomalies. You need to be able to describe trends and explain trends using your chemistry knowledge. By the way, as I'm going through this right now, if you're listening to me thinking, oh gosh, but some of those topics you've talked about, I really need some help with it, or I don't understand how to calculate gradients or draw tangents or whatever, just put a comment down below. What are the specific methods in chemistry, or the specific maths method in chemistry that you're struggling with right now that you need help with? And I will make sure to personally respond to you. So back to graph skills, you'll see that there is a lot of skills involved in graphs, and it's essentially a skill of its own. So you want to get familiar with graph skills and do a lot of practice questions on them. So another quote from the examiner reports, and that is that weaker candidates guess, but strong candidates justify trends using data and chemistry knowledge. Keyword there is justify. So let me give you an example of this. So you're given a temperature time graph of a substance being heated, and you explain you're asked to explain that graph, so the flat sections of the graph. A weaker candidate will say the temperature stays the same. But you, who is going to be the stronger candidate aiming for grade 7 and above, you're going to say something like this: the temperature stays the same because all the energy is being used to break those intermolecular forces. This is what's happening. This is what happens during a change of state. For example, during melting, heat energy breaks the bonds between particles instead of raising the temperature. So can you see how that's just gone from one point that is not justified by any explanations to about 3 points that is justified by explanation. So it goes beyond describing and explaining why the temperature is flat using scientific language. All right, so now that you know how to get a grade 9 in chemistry using maths, you need to know how to apply your knowledge to master exam questions. So if you want to boost your marks even further in chemistry, I want you to watch the next video coming up, Why Top GCSE Maths Students Practice Exam Questions. And that would really show you the importance of practicing exam questions and how to practice exam questions. So watch that video and I will see you in the next video. I hope this one has been helpful for you. Bye for now.